February 26, 1959. The eastern slope of Kholat Syakhl in the northern Urals. A search party finds a tent. The tent is empty. Inside, everything. Backpacks, boots, warm clothing, food, cameras. Outside, no one. The tent has been cut open from the inside, with knives. The people who cut it will never be seen alive again. 9 students and graduates of the Ural Polytechnic Institute. Experienced winter hikers, the highest difficulty rating in the Soviet system. Their leader, 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov. The youngest is 20. The oldest is 38. Their 3-week expedition is a week from completion. None of them will finish it. They will be found on the slope of a mountain whose name in the local Mansi language translates as Dead Mountain. 5 of them in February and March, the last 4 only in May, in a ravine under 4 meters of snow. All without shoes, most without coats. 3 with injuries a forensic examiner will compare to a car crash. In May 1959, the Soviet prosecutor's office closed the case with a single phrase: a compelling natural force which the hikers were unable to overcome. The files were sealed, and for 60 years the question stayed open. Today, real documents, real forensic evidence, the official 2020 conclusion, and the questions that remain. Late January 1959. Sverdlovsk, a closed industrial city in the Soviet Urals. The Ural Polytechnic Institute has one of the strongest hiking clubs in the country. Igor Dyatlov is a 5th-year radio engineering student. A serious, methodical, disciplined hiker, he designs his own tent stoves and builds his own radios. In his group, Zinaida Kolmogorova, 22, his close friend. Lyudmila Dubinina, 20, the second woman. Yuri Doroshenko, Kolmogorova's ex-boyfriend. Yuri Krivonischenko, an engineer working at the secret Soviet nuclear facility known as Chelyabinsk 40. Rustem Slobodin, Alexander Kolevatov, Nikolai Thibault Brignol, the only one with a French surname. His communard grandfather fled to Russia after the Paris Commune. And the oldest, Semyon Zolotaryov, 38, World War II veteran, certified mountain instructor. He joined the group at the last minute. The route was rated Category 3, the highest in the Soviet classification of the time, 300 kilometers on skis in 18 days, a summit attempt on Mount Otorten. They left Sverdlovsk on January 23rd, train to Serov, then Ivdel, then a truck to Vijay, then the last transport, and from there, only skis. On January 28th, days before the tragedy, a 10th member, Yuri Yudin, turns back. His chronic back pain is unbearable. The group helps him to the last village. They embrace. In the last photograph, Yudin is hugging Dubinina. A few days later, he is in a hospital. A month later, he learns he is the only one of 10 still alive. The group kept 2 diaries, a shared one and Kolmogorova's personal one. They had several cameras. Those materials would later become the only window into their final days. The last frames show an ordinary trip. Jokes, a fire, tracks in the snow. Nothing alarming, no hint of what was coming. The last frame any of them shot was on February 3rd. It shows them pitching the tent on the slope of Kholat Syakhl. A few hours after that photograph, all of them would be dead. The tent was pitched in an unexpected place, not in the forest, where hikers usually shelter for the night. Higher, above the tree line, on an open slope, exposed to the wind, with no cover. Experienced mountaineers would call this decision strange for the next 60 years. Possibly Dyatlov didn't want to lose altitude before the final push to Otorten. Possibly something else. The search team reached the tent on February 26th, 3 weeks after the group missed their scheduled return. They spotted it from a distance by a corner of canvas sticking up. It was half buried. One side was cut. Inside, everything they owned. Warm coats, boots, skis, an axe, the stove, food, their cameras. Forensic examination established the central fact. The tent was cut from the inside, not the outside. 3 cuts, the longest, 89 centimeters. Through them, the hikers exited, without boots, without coats, in what they had been sleeping in. Onto the open slope, at -25 degrees Celsius, with wind gusts up to 30 meters per second. Tracks led down the slope from the tent, 8 or 9 pairs, clearly visible in the crust. The tracks were calm, not running in panic, walking a normal pace for 1.5 kilometers, to the edge of the forest, to a large old cedar tree. Under the cedar, the search team found the first 2 bodies, Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonischenko, stripped to their underwear, barefoot, frozen, next to a small fire pit. The fire had been small, but someone had tried to keep it going. On the cedar branches, up to 5 meters off the ground, broken limbs. Someone had climbed up, possibly to see the tent, possibly to see something else. 9 people, no boots, no coats, -25. Something drove them out of that tent in the night. They never made it back. The bodies were found in stages, the first 5 all on the line between the tent and the cedar. All died of hypothermia, all facing toward the tent. They had been trying to get back. Doroshenko and Krivonischenko under the cedar. Zinaida Kolmogorova 300 meters higher up the slope, facing the tent. Igor Dyatlov 480 meters from the cedar, also facing the tent. Rustem Slobodin between Dyatlov and Kolmogorova. Slobodin had a skull fissure, not fatal in itself, but it would have impaired coordination. He may have fallen in the dark, or not. The forensic examiner left the question open. The remaining 4 were not found for almost 2 months. Only in May, when the snow began to melt, a Mansi hunter named Kurikov noticed cut branches in a ravine. Following the trail, searchers found a platform of cut fir branches under a tree. Someone had prepared it, and under 4 meters of snow, the last 4 were there. Their injuries changed everything. Nikolai Thibault Brignol, extensive fracture at the base of the skull, pieces of bone in the brain tissue. Semyon Zolotaryov and Lyudmila Dubinina, multiple rib fractures. Dubinina had 10 ribs broken in 2 places each, massive hemorrhage in the right atrium of the heart, and almost no significant external injuries. The skin was intact. There were almost no bruises. Forensic examiner Vozrozdeny would draw the conclusion that would be cited for 60 years. These injuries cannot be produced by a fall from one's own height, not by a punch, not by a blow with a rock. The force required is comparable to a car crash, and yet no external sign. The skin intact, bruising minimal. Lyudmila Dubinina's eyes, tongue, and part of her upper lip were missing. Her body had been lying in a stream. Modern forensic medicine attributes this to 3 months of immersion. Soft tissues are the first to break down. Fish and small scavengers do the rest. But in 1959, it shocked everyone on the case. Alongside the autopsies, lead investigator Lev Ivanov requested a radiological examination. This was an unusual step, and the result was unusual. On the sweater and pants of 2 of the dead, Dubinina and Kolovatov, beta radiation was elevated, up to twice the normal background. After the items were rinsed in running water, the readings dropped. That indicated surface contamination, not internal exposure. There is a mundane explanation. Yuri Krivonischenko was an engineer at a closed Soviet nuclear facility, Chelyabinsk 40, today known as Mayak. It was one of the main plutonium production sites in the USSR. In 1957, the Kishtim disaster occurred there, the 3rd worst nuclear accident in history after Chernobyl and Fukushima. Krivonischenko could have brought clothing that had been in contact with contaminated material. Some of his clothes were lent to others on the trip when they began freezing. Dubinina was found wearing his pants. The explanation is plausible, but it doesn't fully close the question. Why those specific items of clothing? Why beta-active contamination specifically? And why did the investigation suddenly accelerate toward closure? In 1959, the case is rushed shut. Yevgeny Okishev, deputy prosecutor of Sverdlovsk Oblast at the time, gave an interview in 2015, shortly before his death. He said the investigation was supposed to continue. A second expedition to the pass was being arranged. Then Deputy Prosecutor General of the USSR Urakov flew in from Moscow and personally ordered the case shut. Okishev maintained this account until the end of his life. Moscow closed the investigation from above. May 28, 1959. Criminal case number 61959 closed. Stated cause: a compelling natural force which the hikers were unable to overcome. The archive sealed for 30 years. Over 60 years, roughly 100 theories grew up around Dyatlov Pass. The 2020 prosecutorial review formally examined 75 of them. The 9 most popular were singled out. 8 of those 9, the investigation rejected. We'll go through them honestly and fast. Theory 1, a missile test. The Soviet Union was indeed launching missiles from the Kapustin Yar test range during that period. But Kapustin Yar is 2,000 kilometers from the pass. The trajectories of those launches physically did not pass over the northern Urals. No trajectory chart from that period supports this. Theory 2, an attack by the Mansi, the indigenous people of these mountains. The Mansi did live in the area. Kholat Syakhl was a sacred site to them, but the investigation interviewed every Mansi in the region. Every alibi held. There were no signs of struggle on the bodies. Nothing was stolen from the tent. The Mansi themselves participated actively in the search. The theory was already dead in 1959. Theory 3, a nuclear blast or secret weapon test. This is where the contradiction is cleanest. Radiation was found on only 2 pieces of clothing. The rest of the clothing, the bodies, the vegetation around the tent, the snow itself, all read normal background. A blast or leak does not work that way. Theories 4 and 5, UFOs and yetis. There were eyewitness reports of glowing orbs over the Urals that night. The prosecutors investigated. They were long-distance observations of launches from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. The Yeti theory has 0 physical evidence in 60 years. July 11, 2020. Yekaterinburg, press conference of the Russian Prosecutor General's office. Deputy head of the Urals Federal District Directorate, Andrei Kuryakov, announces the official cause of death of the Dyatlov group. A snow slab, more precisely, a slab avalanche, a layer of wind-compressed snow that breaks off the slope as a single solid block. The reconstruction goes like this. On the evening of February 1st, the group leveled a platform for the tent by cutting into the slope, standard technique. But this time the cut destabilized the layer of snow holding the slab on top of the slope. A sudden temperature drop and northwesterly wind through the night kept piling more snow on top. At some point in the night, the slab released. Not the cinematic avalanche, a quiet, heavy, slow movement of snow mass directly onto the tent. Inside the tent, 3 of them are caught under the leading edge of the slab. The injuries to Thibaut Brignol, Zolotaryov and Dubinina are not impact wounds. They are crush loads. The weight of the ice slab, by the Swiss researchers' calculation, was around 400 kilograms, enough to fracture ribs and skulls. And without surface damage, the skin stays intact, bruising is minimal, snow presses evenly. From here on, survival logic. The tent is destroyed. Digging out gear in the dark, under collapsed snow, in hurricane-force wind, impossible. An experienced winter hiker in this situation does what the manuals say. Move down, into the forest, find shelter under the trees, wait for daylight, then come back. That is exactly what they did. 8 on their feet, 3 injured, going down, 1.5 kilometers, to the cedar. Under the cedar, they built a small fire. 2 of those most lightly dressed, Doroshenko and Krivonishchenko, froze first, right at the cedar. The injured, Thibaut Brignol, Zolotaryov, Dubinina, and with them Kolevatov, were moved to the ravine, where there was more shelter. They cut fir branches for a platform. Then the remaining 4, Dyatlov, Kolmogorova, Slobodin, and 1 more, tried to climb back to the tent for warmth and gear. None of them made it. All 4 were found facing the tent, frozen, one by one, on the way back. Kuryakov ended with a single sentence. Formally, the case is closed. 61 years after it was opened. In January 2021, 6 months after the official announcement, 2 Swiss researchers, Johann Gaume and Alexander Puzrin, published a physical model in the journal Communications, Earth and Environment. They built a numerical simulation of slab release on this exact slope of Kholat Syakhl. accounting for the platform cut, the temperature drop, and the katabatic wind that night. Their model addressed the four main objections to the avalanche theory. 1. There was no classic avalanche debris in the morning. They showed the slab was small, narrow, and settled under its own weight onto the tent, without sliding further. 2. The slope is only 23-25 degrees, considered too low for an avalanche. They showed that with a platform cut and strong wind, slabs do release at that angle. 3. The injuries are atypical for avalanches. They modeled 400 kilograms of ice, producing exactly this kind of compression injury without surface wounds. 4. The gap between pitching the tent and the release was almost 9 hours. They explained that as the time the wind needed to build the secondary slab on top. This is the first comprehensive scientific basis for the avalanche conclusion in 60 years. But the families of the dead don't accept it. The lawyer for the Dyatlov Memorial Fund, Yevgeny Chernusov, said in 2020 that the families would accept only a man-made cause. The BBC contacted relatives of all 9 victims in 2021. None accepted the conclusion. What is explained? The tent cut from inside, the calm descent without boots, injuries with no surface trauma, even pacing on the tracks, the fire at the cedar, the 4 turning back toward the tent. What is less explained? The precise origin of the radioactive contamination, Moscow's decision to shut the case in 1959, and why the highly experienced Dyatlov pitched the tent on that exact slope. Most of the mystery has closed, some of it hasn't, and that's what an honest history looks like. The Dyatlov group was buried in Sverdlovsk. 7 of them at Mikhailov Cemetery, 2 at Ivanov Cemetery. Their headstone shows the group photograph. 9 young faces, the youngest 20, the oldest 38. Yuri Yudin, the 10th, who turned back on January 28th, lived another 54 years. He returned to the case for the rest of his life. He helped researchers. He recognized his friends' belongings in a museum. He died in 2013, by his own request, buried near the group. 62 years between the body in the ravine and the scientific paper that explained how it could have happened. The case was first closed from above, then declassified, then re-examined, then backed by physics. Each step gave answers, each step left new questions. Dyatlov Pass is not a story about aliens. It's a story about how thin the line is between a routine winter hike and catastrophe, and how long it takes afterward to put the picture back together. What is settled? The hikers cut the tent themselves from the inside. They walked down the slope calmly, not in panic. All 9 died of hypothermia and snowmass injury. What is disputed? Whether the trigger was specifically a slab avalanche or another form of katabatic event. What remains open? The precise origin of the radioactive contamination on the clothing, and Moscow's motive in shutting the case in 1959. What separates serious history from conspiracy isn't a willingness to ask questions. It's the discipline to hold 2 things at once: the official answer, where it's backed by physics and documents, and the open questions, where they genuinely exist. Both are part of the truth. After 60 years, the Dyatlov Pass mystery has gone from supernatural to almost scientific. Almost. 9 people, 1 night, a tent cut open from the inside, 1.5 kilometers of footprints down the slope, 30 meters per second of wind, -25, 61 years to the official answer, and a handful of questions that perhaps will never fully close.